My name is Jensen. Let's learn some UiPath. Today we will see how we can do API calls and JSON parsing with RegEx. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the new videos about UiPath and RPA. So let's get started. We have an API here that's a StarWars API, and we can call the endpoints. This one is film API, and then films one we can call like characters, we can call planets and whatever, and this one calls the first film. And we can see here that this from this curly bracket to this curly bracket is the JSON that we'll get out of it. So it contains of a title, a director, release date, producer, characters, planets, and whatever. So we want to call this API, and then we want to get out, say, the title, right? So we want to call this one and get out the title. And we can see here that if let me change this one to 2, then we will get the second movie and so on. But for now, let's just call the first one. So we'll go up here and we will copy this address. Then we'll go back to our UiPath. And what we'll do here is that we will, first we'll find a HTTP request. Drag this guy in. The endpoint, that's just the API address we copied from our StarWars API. Then we will mark it, and what we'll only do is that we'll change the result here, Control K, strFilms. So now we get out a JSON. We can inspect it with a right line, and this. So now we call the API and write it out in the output. We go to output, and we can see here that we indeed get the JSON here. So let's copy this, and now we want to get out the information that we wanted, say the title. We could use a package and then deserialize it. However, from a security standpoint, you might not want to install packages, or we can just make a more clean solution with RegEx. So let me close this one down again. Then we go to a RegEx expression editor. I'll prefer regexr, but there's a lot of them out there. So in the text, let me then we paste in what we got from the JSON. We can see here, and what we want to get is this a new hope. So we want to make a regex that tells to look behind this and ahead of this, right? And we can do it up here. So we'll edit the expression. If you don't know anything about RegEx, I'll recommend my RegEx guide, which I will link to in the description below, so go watch that. And from now on, I assume you know a little bit of RegEx. You don't need to understand it, just the exact syntax, just you have a little idea of it. So what we'll do is that we'll tell RegEx to look behind the title thing, and that one is done with a positive look behind here, and then we can just write in the title and the quotation marks, colon, quotation mark. So now we are telling RegEx to look behind this guy, and what we'll do is that we will tell RegEx to find any character afterwards, and then any number of characters, and then do a lazy lookup. And then we'll just say look ahead. So that one will be a look ahead of a quotation mark. That's this one here. And then we'll just make 2 parentheses, and we can see here that we have a match here, right? So we got a new hope, and it even helps us out here. So now we got a new match. That's a new hope. So that's fine. We got the regex code here. So we'll copy that. And then we'll go to UiPath, we'll go to variables, create a variable that's for our regex pattern, so that'll just be a string. And then up here, we will open the expression editor and copy it in. Sorry, we'll need quotation marks and copy it in. And you'll see that regex tells us that something is wrong. That's because of all these quotation marks. So what we need to do is that we'll just need to make a double. That will tell regex that it's a part of a string. So double, double, and double. So now we got a regex pattern here. We can close the variable section below, and then we could have a matches. So what we'll do here is that we will find a matches like this. We will drag it in, And our input, that's the JSON we got up here, that's the strFilms. The pattern, that will just be the pattern that we just created. The result, that will be of a IEnumerable, so Control K, IEN, matches we can call it. You can call yours whatever you want. Then we can see here, down in variables, that we created a IEnumerable of matches. So far, so good. Then we can print it out. And remember, say that the JSON contained more titles, then we'll have a problem. However, it don't. And so we can just go down here to write line, and then we can say IEnumerable matches. Then the first entry, that's, remember, it's 0 index, so that's the first entry in the list, and then that value. So this one will write out the title from the HTTP request that we made. Let's check that out. So hopefully it will write a new hope if we did it right. And we indeed written out, sorry, my grammar is not good today. We were writing a new hope. So far so good. So say that we want to update like an Excel table. I created one here. And we'll have all the first 7 Star Wars movies we got here, and we want the corresponding titles. So let's see how we'll create a iteration to do that. So first we will have to have an Excel application scope here. Drag this guy in up in the beginning, and we'll choose our workbook path. I called mine Star Wars. You can call yours whatever you want. And what we'll do here is that we'll read the Excel worksheet, so find a read range. So we'll read sheet 1, and then we'll output it to a data table, so Control K, dtStarWars, we can call it. That will be a data table. You can see down here in the variables that it will be a data table. What we'll need to do now is that we'll need to make a duplicate of this data table, and I will show you why in a minute. Just copy this and paste it. And instead of dtStarWars, we will create a new variable called dtsv output. So this one we are reading from, and this one we are writing to. And we can, up here in the Excel application scope, we can just unmark this visible, because we don't want to have the operations visible, because that will just be extra time, and we won't have to expect them. So far, so good. Then we will have a for each row that will iterate through all these 7 movies in our Excel sheet and now in the data table. So find a for each row here, drag it in underneath these 2 read ranges. I'll delete this body like this, and we will read through our dtStarWars SV. So we are iterating through this, and then we can drag in the HTTP request. So we'll drag this guy in here, and remember we will iterate through each of the ideas. So now we will, instead of making a static endpoint, we will delete the last part here, so like this, and then we will just refer to our ID column, so row. That's the current row that we are iterating through, row.Item. That's the column name, that's idea, and then ToString. So now this one will go from 1 to 7 dynamically, right? And then what we will need to do is that we will need to have the matches dragged in, and the matches we don't have to change anything because there's no dynamic part of it. So far so good. Then we can have our write line in. Let's just write out lines first so we can see that we are actually able to do this operation with all 7 entries. So run file. We will delete the write line in a bit. And by the way, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. That will really help me a lot. Now we are running the workflow. We do the API calls, and we will have them printed out to our output box here in a second. Right now, you can see this one is much faster than having the robot typing in. So here, we printed out all 7 titles, and then we can start to write in to our Excel sheet. So we will have a assign. Let me drag this guy in here. And what we need to do is up here in the for each row, we will create an index. So Control K, int index. You will see why in a few seconds. So int index. And now we want to assign we cannot, if we wanted to change the data table here, dtStarWars index for each row, we were not allowed to. That's why we created the output here. And so here we will we will assign values to our to our output data table like this. We will choose the rows, and that's why we created the int index, because we wanted to keep track on where we are. So this one tells UiPath to have this row with the current index. That's just the same as up here. So far so good. And then we will assign values to the item with the title. That's just the column name, right? So this one will, what this essentially does, it takes values and assigns to the StarWars output with the row number where we got to up here, and in the title. Now we just need to assign some values to it. And what the values is just the values that we get here. So we can just do this, and then we can delete this right line, because now we are assigning the values to it. Then we just need to write it back to Excel. So find a write range. Under Excel, drag this guy in here in the, maybe we can just drag it in up here. Just make sure that it's not in the for each, because then you'll have a problem. And instead of, so we won't write in the headers, we will just write in the second row, because we'll keep our table headers and the table formatting. That's why we don't add headers as well up here. And this one will just be the dtStarWars output. So now we can update our Excel. Let's run it. And we will be making the API calls, and now we will update our Excel sheet, or at least in a few seconds. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be making much more exciting UiPath videos in the coming. But let's inspect our data to see that we did what we wanted. We'll open up Excel, and boom. Now we got all titles here, and we did it automatically with the API calls and the RegEx JSON pass. That's it for today. Have a good day. Bye bye.